So the power of special interests. On our panel this afternoon we have Madeline at the end, we have Sam and we have Julia, who are going to talk about their experiences and how they've dealt with things and how they've progressed. My husband has special interests in pens, coats, stationery. I've used that to my benefit over the years. I can leave him his staples and go off to the range for 3 hours. I know where he'll be when I come back. So that's how we harvest his special interests. But the interesting thing is, how did you discover what your special interests were?
Ooh, trying that all out. Sorry, I'm just like.
I feel like I was born with mine.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as I was conscious, I knew that I was really passionate about comedy. And yeah, it just grew and grew as I got older. And then as I found ways to make it into my career, it's low-key an obsession, but in a good way.
Yeah, I feel like it has to be sometimes. I feel like my main special interest is Brett's, which I feel does kind of branch off. I don't think I've brought the bats back today. No, I haven't. I feel like it does branch off into stuff like fashion, so I'm quite passionate about. Like, well, if I'm costuming, I'll be watching like Versace 1973, it's in my runway, or just like stuff in the background. And for me, I find it does become transferable skills. Like, my costumes are not extravagant. I should say this. My drag is very weird. I dress up as a fridge, but I feel like it kind of transgrinds into other things. So I feel like definitely I feel like it helps me dress certain ways, or I can present myself in any which way. Yeah, I'm trying to think what other special interests I have. Sonic, but I feel like that's just Sonic. I just like.
Need you say more?
Yeah, I just like my weird little characters, and I just cherish them, and they just sit in my heart somewhere, and they just linger. I definitely feel like I do a lot of character work as well, so I feel like it does transcribe into that. A lot of my drag is almost like character comedy. I feel like you could probably branch out. So, when I dress as a fridge, I'm doing Memory by Cats. I'm dying. Please help me, someone. I'm about to be torn to shreds. I'm about to be scraped. I don't know. I feel like there's just some sort of funny pipeline of just enjoying and obsessing over characters that I then use said characters in my work.
I think mine started as a small child, so I was really obsessed with books right from a really young age, and forced my mum to teach me how to read when I was about 3.5. But I think as can be the way, especially because I was undiagnosed till in my 50s, people just told me that, put that aside, get a career, do this, do that. I felt like everybody was, I was really obsessed with writing and writing stories and poetry, but everyone was telling me I shouldn't do it, it was a waste of time. I don't know if that's a common thing.
I think that can be quite common. We're very much in a society that's you must have a job, you must have a wife and kids. It feels very much like we're pressured to act a certain way, especially with creative fields. I was very pressured. When in school it was so you're going to university, right? You're going to university. And I'm I don't know. I didn't really think that far. And I feel like a lot of creative subjects are not as...
They're not as valued.
No. I mean, there's not really a lot of funding in arts, unfortunately.
I think for me, because I'm all ADHD, so autistic and ADHD, I was very bright, but I was always outside the door of the classroom. So I left school at 16, but nobody told me that I could, everyone else was going to university. Yeah. Nobody told me I could do anything different to that.
Yeah, I think you've got to learn that for yourself as well. It feels very much it feels like there's almost a lot of societal pressure on acting and being a certain way, or going into a certain field. Where, I don't know, I think it's a lot of power of just doing what you want.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I've been doing drag for performing roughly about 3 years, and I guess it does kind of stem from special interests of my little characters and weird historical fashion. It's taken me all around the UK. I've performed at Edinburgh Fringe. I've put my own Fringe show on down south. I run like queer scratch nights bi-monthly, and I feel like you might have to work harder for it, but you're passionate about it, right? So you're willing to put that work in, and like I feel like you definitely get stuff out of it. Like I definitely enjoy what I do, and I enjoy having like using like I enjoy using my own skills for the world around me, and I feel like it definitely reflects in like when I like on the last panel, someone came up to me like, "I saw you last year," and I was like, "What?" Which is always quite weird whenever I meet someone who's seen me perform. I'm like, "How? First of all, haven't you recognised me? I'm clearly not an onion right now." Sorry, I do a lot of weird drag. I'm not RuPaul's Drag Race. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, my brain's. I think it's.
You doing great.
Thank you.
So do you find that you've faced any stereotype or stereotypical behaviour with relation to your...
I'd say definitely, because
Yeah.
comedy is a very male-centered environment. You know, it's quite difficult to break into it when you're a woman anyway, but then when you add autism onto that as well, it makes it like doubly as hard. But then that can also help as well, because it gives you this little like something special, and it makes you a bit unique and stand out a bit. And you can, like, if there's someone in the audience who is autistic, they can then see you doing something and thriving in this environment, and they may never have seen that had they not like come to a show.
Can give you that drive as well,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you feel so passionately about it.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm going to do this. I'm definitely going to do this,
Yeah.
whatever kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just getting that good reception, or like, I don't know, being that like representation of like,
Yeah.
it feels like you're changing
Yeah.
like mindsets, especially with comics. I've not, well, I've done comedy in the past, but I think I've got quite lucky that I have been in spaces where it's like, it's queer and it is, the cast is diverse. There are like POC cast members, there are like trans cast members, whereas like I feel like there is a lot of like almost stereotyping with autism sometimes. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we mentioned this in the first panel where it's like, we're not white cis men
Yeah.
who are really obsessed with trains.
Yeah, it's always the trains.
It's always trains, or it's always something really smart. I'm like, I'm not like, I'm
Really thick.
yeah, I'm smart in my own way, just not like, don't talk to me about maths.
Yeah.
Please don't talk to me about maths or
Yeah.
trains.
Don't talk to me about that.
No. Please don't give us math questions later on.
Oh my god, please,
Please
yeah.
don't. We all panic.
You can ask me anything about poetry.
It's always that one that used to come out when I first did training, and that was, oh, is it like Rain Man?
Yeah.
Oh, I used to loathe that question.
Yeah, because I feel like autism is subjective to the person, right? We all display differently. We all act differently. Like, I'm not. If you spoke to me outside of this panel, I would probably not be as. Not how what's the word? I would probably be a lot more timid. Just because I like. Not that there's a barrier here. Obviously, you can put just after if you want to. But it's like always having like that sort of control, and like definitely before I realised I was autistic, I was very much like I didn't know how to like interact with people. And I remember my mother filling out my assessment form. It was just a read. She was just like, Sam never tidies their room, it's always a mess. They don't know how to like integrate into conversations. And I was like, you're right, but you're so blunt about it. I mean, she's also autistic, so I expected nothing less really. Yeah, and I feel like it's just kind of like a lot of that stereotyping where it's like, we're all different, we all act differently.
Mhm.
I know autistic people that love to public speak. I also know autistic people that would rather die,
Yeah.
and they would just cease up if they were to be like on a stage. So I think it's different for all of us, and like it's almost powerful in a way because we all use our strengths differently.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I found with mine, I've been able to channel it into work, which has been really good. But I kind of wish I'd done it when I was 20 and not when I was 40.
Yeah.
And I only came to it because I was working in a so I left school at 16. Then I worked in a preschool and discovered that I actually really liked learning if it was something I was interested in.
Yeah.
And then I got really bullied by another staff member and quit my job and was having counselling and had this like epiphany in counselling, like what if I don't stop trying to please my dad and have and because he's never happy anyway, and just do what I want to do. And that was when I went and studied creative writing.
I think that's really, it's powerful because like you're doing what you want to do and it's not the set expectation. Because my mother has never come to a drag show. She's never like outwardly supported me. So that's my alarm to go. To go shower. Sorry, that's my usual. I thought I'd turn off. No, I feel there's a lot of like once you've broken that boundary, it feels like it almost opens a door.
I think that's the whole thing. Like you were saying, your mum never encouraged you. My dad's never encouraged me in anything ever, and weirdly has been better with me since I made my own choices.
Yeah.
But I think like if you have autistic kids, please like encourage them to follow their interests
and don't push them into a box. Let them do what they thrive in.
Yeah.
Don't force them to do things that you think is going to
Exactly.
help them in life, because it works differently for us than it would for a neurotypical person.
Yeah, because I wonder now, like, what if I'd done what I was interested in when I was like 18 and studied that? Like, my life might have been completely different.
I think especially for like older generations that maybe like there was no support. Because my mother, she's 60. Definitely has autism, but it's definitely not. It's very much like hush hush. We don't really talk about this. I know that if she'd received support or like at least had some idea, her life could have been so much more different.
Because I think you said earlier in that other panel that one of the things that comes with diagnosis is it makes sense of a lot of things.
Yeah. I definitely had a very big. It was weird. It's like anyway, but like having that like
when you know for definite,
Yeah.
it's like, everything suddenly makes sense.
I didn't know. Well, I kind of did know, and my dad definitely is, and my sister and my brother. But people, every now and then I would say to someone, I think I've got some of these traits, or I think I definitely had ADHD traits at school, and people go, no, I don't think you are. No, you make eye contact, you do this, you do that. So it took me longer than it might have done to get that diagnosis because of that.
Yeah, and I think it's because you learn to mask them and sort of act how people expect you to, but then deep down it's not.
Well, they don't see the
natural
struggle of days you're crashed out in front of the television because you can't move.
Yeah. I've got what's left of brain.
You know what you were talking about doing your comedy and developing from there. Do you think that your passion for things, for one particular thing, has helped you form a sense of community? Has helped you interact with other people outside of
definitely
the circle?
Yeah, I mean, because there's surprisingly quite a lot of neurodivergent people in comedy. It's a very autistic friendly space, I think, because you're controlling the social scenario, and it's like you're speaking, they're listening. So you get to have that sense of control. But then also just being interested in it has helped me connect with neurotypical people who are also into comedy, because we have this thing in common, and you don't have to go through all the awkward small talk. It's just straight to what you're interested in, and then you can sort of go from there. So yeah, it's definitely helpful to have something like that.
Yeah, I think you end up meeting more people with different backgrounds. Like I've called this year my side quest era, because whilst I do drag, I've decided that I would like to stretch out more than just why I love doing drag. I'm like, okay, I know I like doing this, but let's do improv comedy, let's do improv acting, let's sign up for panels and just see what happens. Because it is, again, it's that barrier of like, I'm yapping. And there is that already common ground of like, well, we both know we enjoy this thing, so it kind of takes away some of the awkwardness of like, I know a lot of like autistic people have social scripts. I'm very much like a social script person. It's taken me years to learn small talk is actually a good thing, and you should use it. You shouldn't just go in with, so I watched the Lord of the Rings extended documentary last night. I would like to talk about this to this random stranger I've just met for the next hour.
Well, it's good if you have that common ground, isn't
Yeah.
it? Because I really hate when people are just talking about EastEnders or the weather.
Yeah.
Like it literally makes them die inside.
Yeah.
I know what the weather
So
is. I've been outside.
within the poetry community, you can go straight in with like, oh, did you see that scene
Yeah.
of that poet? And wasn't he good? And that other one, she was really terrible. You know, it's sort of
I feel like with poetry, I feel like the subject matter is a lot more, like, it's a lot more diverse in terms of like the themes, the like context. So I feel like there's a lot more of like jumping points you can have, and like you've all got that shared like baseline of like we're all poets.
yeah. But there is like a real community. I feel like I found my community, like, and not just in Norwich, like online. Like, I've made a lot of friends through it that are like my closest friends, really.
Yeah, I think it's nice to have that, because then I feel like once you've found that community of people that are like, or just like me, it almost feels like you're learning off each other. So I've definitely like, through having other autistic friends, especially in like drag and stuff, I'm like, oh, I see that you do things similar to how I do these things, and like, say if they're having like a bit of a meltdown, I'm like, okay, well I know how I react in these situations, so I know that for this moment I can like be like, hey, let's go sit down. Here is some water. Would you like to do some deep breaths? Would you like to leave? I will come back in 5 minutes. And it's nice because then it always feels like you're growing, that person's growing, like you are the community. As a performer, I do. As a performer slash a trans person, I do like connecting with the community quite a lot. My last gig was Saturday in London at a place called the Vagina Museum. They are currently needing more funding to essentially keep their rent with the landlord. And they've smashed all the donation goals, and like, it was nice to do that gig because I was like part of like the wider queer community, wider like women's rights, like anatomy rights, and like all this like stuff that I feel like is so vital. And it was great. Like, I'd never met half these people before, and I was just yapping away, which is such a rare occurrence to me. But I'm like, the energy was there. It was just a really nice evening just to like connect as people and be like, well, we've managed to help raise XYZ amount, and like all the work that's happened. Like, I think they've now got something like 60k. I think the night we raised about 600 something. So it's all just how like it's nice, and we learn off each other, and I feel like that's quite powerful.
Supportive communities, isn't
Yeah.
it? And definitely one of the things about the poetry community is a lot of people are diverse, I've discovered as well. Because there's a lot of old people in that community, a lot of them are undiagnosed, but they definitely are.
But I feel like I did mention this first part. I feel like you don't always need to be diagnosed.
No.
Necessarily, I feel like a lot of us are very welcoming to the fact, like, if you think you have this, that's fine. We can be here, we can give you XYZ resources, we can just help you exist with us, and we've all connected through like this one special interest, or this one thing that like connects us all together. But like, it takes away the awkwardness, it takes away the like, oh, blah, blah, blah. But I can go to a show, I can see someone dressed absolutely fabulously, I'm like, oh, diva, I love this outfit, tell me about this outfit, and then we'll have like a nice little like back and forth, and like say if there's someone there who's not having a great time, I'm like, okay, do you want to like, we can arrange a coffee or something. It's just, it's nice to have those moments, because also I feel like for a lot of ADHD autism folk, I don't really leave the house unless I have something scheduled.
Yes,
And I'm booked and blessed individual. So it's nice to have those moments where like, I know I'm going to go outside, I know I'm going to see my friends, like I'm doing a gig in Kingsland this Friday, and I know I'm going to see the people I do burlesque with. I know I'm gonna meet new people. I know there's gonna be a rough, vague background of like, you have some interest in drag and burlesque.
Yeah.
Do you find you have to pace yourself though?
Sometimes, yeah.
Because I know before lockdown I had a year where one of my books had come out and I had to do a lot of like travelling around, and lockdown actually felt like a real relief to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, because you don't have
Not
to
have to leave the house.
Yeah, I was in school before lockdown, so I got to leave school early, and it was like the biggest blessing ever because I know.
Everyone was going, "Oh my god, I'm so bored," and
I was like, this is amazing.
"Me more books."
Yeah, my life did not really change that much. I was in third year of university. I was also working at Tesco. So I was like, so I still have to go to work. Damn it.
No, like my special interest was really useful in lockdown because I started running these like email courses and online things, and so like where everyone else wasn't working, I was working,
Yeah.
and everyone was going, "Oh, you're keeping us going, it's really good."
Yeah, so do you think it was helpful to like bridge the gap and like
Definitely.
still have community whilst like being home and like working at your own needs?
Yeah.
Right, thank you. So if you had to give a word of advice to people on how to channel something that they're passionate about, what do you think that advice would be?
Don't be scared, because I think, like we've mentioned, there's so much pressure about being this like stereotypical normal person and doing normal things, and then when your interests don't align with that, or you're like passionate about something to an extent that is seen as weird, it can be very daunting to sort of put yourself out there and be like, I love this thing, I want to do this with my life, and I'm going to be proud of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just
Just
it takes a lot of
yourself.
confidence.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to
Yeah.
do it.
Don't, it's okay if you're cringy. I'm
Yeah.
cringy, but I'm free.
Exactly.
I've definitely had some flop of gigs. I've definitely done gigs where I've turned up and I'm like, I actually have no idea what I'm doing, and it's gone.
Or gigs where no one comes.
I've performed to a room of 10 people, and there was
Oh, I've done a one room. That was
one room.
yeah, that was real intimate.
That's running someone.
Yeah.
So are you enjoying my set?
I did a poetry festival reading where there were 5 poets and we read to each other.
That's quite
In a
sweet.
tent.
I feel like it's moments like that though where it feels
Yeah.
quite nice.
It was
People-
nice.
Yeah, like you end up just like having a nice bonding time instead of like almost, because sometimes, as much as I love performing, sometimes, especially if it's somewhere new or if it's somewhere where like I'm not 100% comfortable, it's sometimes nice if the reception isn't always as big as like you're expecting it to be, because I feel like that takes a lot of the social pressure off.
Especially if you're early on in your career.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think the other thing to say is like pursue it, and you can turn it into a job if you want to.
There are other people like you out there.
Yeah.
I've definitely found people who are very like me now, and I found it quite helpful to like on my journey of like going through gender stuff and like realizing that I want to transition medically. It's nice that I have allowed myself to not have that guilt or have that shame about. I know I'm slightly weird, but I like that I'm slightly weird. And like, if someone has an issue with that, that's kind of on them, really. They're being boring. Yeah, just it's good to be yourself.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's
It is, and also you can make your own opportunities.
exactly yeah.
That's the other thing.
Made countless opportunities. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing this one. I'm doing too much. No, it's like I saw me and my friends saw that there was a gap in the market for a queer open mic. So we have made that an opportunity. We've currently done 2 gigs. We're yet to book the 3rd. And it's been great because we've all had this basis like, well, we're queer performers. We would like to have a more diverse like scene because we're all drag performers. All we see is drag. Not that we hate drag. We love drag. But it was nice to like bring together different like identities into one room, and we all have that like base, like we're all artists, and like we all do our thing. Like at the last one, we had someone doing choir singing at the Yard, which is somewhere over there in that direction. We had someone play Guitar Hero live. It was
I
great.
love that.
Yeah, they like brought their own Xbox 360. They're like, can I play Guitar Hero? And we're like, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we have like drag performers. We have stand up. We have all sorts of like fun stuff happen. And I think like that has just happened because we've made these opportunities available to ourselves for other people.
And also, oh, sorry.
I was going to say, how do you deal with the hecklers, with the criticism of performances?
It's strange because it never bothers me because I just view them as they're clearly miserable with themselves and they're taking an opportunity to put that onto somebody else.
Yeah.
When it's not about me, it's about them. And also sometimes it gives you a bit of thick skin. So then, because I think the worst is when it's online because it's a lot easier. Yeah, it's a lot easier to sort of make fun of it in person, and you'll have other people around you like doing them. But then when it's online, it's like it's there, everyone can see it, and it's quite daunting.
Yeah, it's definitely taken me a few years.
Yeah,
I think as I've got more confident with my own performing, I've definitely grown a thicker skin.
yeah.
I've definitely had friends who have been plastered on like the Daily Mail and like so it's whilst obviously that was not directed at me, it's definitely been like, or if I've been at shows and like I've had people like say stuff about me and I'm like, I don't really care.
Yeah.
So long as I know that I'm doing well, so long as I'm happy with my own outcome, I don't really care what other people think. I do love when I get compliments and stuff. I did once have, whilst I was dressed as an onion, there's a running joke. Someone in the drag world was like, "Yeah, my brother like has stickers of you, and he uses it in our group WhatsApp."
Amazing.
As me as an onion. It's really quite bizarre, but I quite love it. I host a lot as well, so there's just something about it where I don't really care. And I think it's also because I'm being an advocate for like other gay people as well, so I feel like I'm having that in my brain of like, this isn't for me, this is for everyone else. Like I remember doing a gig and I was doing a duet with a friend of mine and their ex was in the audience and they were just like glaring at us the entire number and like they were doing some slight heckles and we were just there like, it was almost laughable because we're like, well, we're having a nice time, we've put ourselves out there and like, you're just clearly not having a nice time, so why have you taken the energy just to like be rude?
Yeah. And I was going to add to the previous point as well that by being open about your passions, it really will inspire people. Like one of my biggest inspirations getting into comedy was an autistic comedian called Fern Brady. Yeah, amazing. And without seeing her stuff, I probably never would be where I am today.
Yeah.
Because I'd never seen someone be so open about autism in comedy and be able to make light out of it when it can be a really difficult, horrible thing to have sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you see someone sort of thriving and being able to use that, it's really helpful.
It feels really empowering as well because it's like, yes, I've had bad interactions in the past, but I've grown from it and like I see younger performers coming up and like, or even like my friends in burlesque who are like, I love your drag, and they'll do stuff that's inspired by you, and I feel like especially the drag space, we all like kind of learn off each other, which is quite sweet. And we all use each other's skill sets. So I've got a friend who's really good at sewing, so if there's something that me and crotches on trousers, hate them. So if there's anything I ever struggle with, I'm just like, hey bro, could you help me please? And then if anyone's like, oh, I need to have like this thing crocheted by this time, I'm like, okay, deal, done. This is my project, pal. Let's go. And it's just nice that we all it feels like we're growing together as like a community almost.
Definitely.
And because we all have that, like we don't all have a thick skin, but we all look out for each other, which I think is quite powerful.
There's a lot of support.
Yeah.
That's really nice to be able to end on a real positive note about things, particularly with, I know when you were talking about things being online a little while ago and people being advocate. I watched a programme the other day, I don't know whether anyone else has seen it, Adolescence.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, by the end of that second episode, it left me really speechless about how intrusive the internet and the computers and that can become in this day and age.
Mm.
That's our panel has been able to have an opportunity to talk. Is there anyone who's got a question for the panel at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall I speak? Okay, so obviously you guys all have special interests, which is why you're doing this panel. And I think if I was asked what my special interest is, I'd really struggle to answer that question. It's like the worst small talk question. What are your interests? What are your hobbies? And it was actually what put me off of pursuing a formal autism diagnosis for a couple of years, because I thought that's the one major trait that I can't tick. So how am I going to persuade anyone that I am autistic? And like you, Julia, I'm ADHD. So what was really helpful for me was finding out how, for the ADHD neurotype, special interests can present differently in terms of you still have them, but they can be sort of shorter bursts and fizzle out really quickly.
Yeah.
So, for example, 6 weeks ago, I got really interested in socialism. And everything I read and watched and talked about and thought about was about socialism. And now I'm kind of like, capitalism, socialism, whatever. And if you ask me about socialism, I could not say anything intelligent about it. I think because of the working memory problem, it just doesn't stick. So I don't know if that resonates with anyone in the audience or on the panel.
Certainly for me, as ADHD, I've had lots of special interests that lasted a little time, and I buy everything to do with it, like
Back of a class, and you're like, okay.
lots of different creative things. And I think the reason poetry has stuck with me is that it's short little things. Like, if you ask me to write a novel, I mean, I've tried, I get bored with it. So yeah, that really resonates. And I didn't think even though I was like teaching poetry, writing books, I didn't think that was my special interest until my son said, well, of course it is, Mum.
Yeah, I don't think you register. I'm also ADHD. I definitely it's like when you cycle back to an old special interest, you're like, an old friend. I've already forgotten all, it's like, I've been I like history. I've been in my Roman history recently. Could not tell you half the information I have learned. But I feel like I definitely see how it's like, seems like, wow, you're autistic, you must have a special interest. Like, I'm passionate about stuff and I have special interests, but they're not a defining part of my autism. At least for me. I think for me it's a lot of the social side of like, I don't like making eye contact, at least straight away. I sometimes don't say the right thing, or like my tone is sometimes quite monotone. Or I definitely have a bit of a resting face that looks quite negative. Yeah, I've definitely been like, are you having a nice day? I am, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just immersing myself. I'm just thinking. This is my thinking phase.
I think those short-term bursts of things can be really good though, because it means you do like a diverse amount of stuff. Because I had to sort of keep saying that to my son, because he was like, well, I get bored with things, and then he's got a friend who's straightforwardly autistic, who's obsessed with guitar, and it's just everything is guitar, and he's like a really super guitarist. But then Natty's done all, he's a designer and he's a singer and he's a this and a that, and it's just different, isn't it?
Yeah, that really resonates with me. I'm not diagnosed, but everything, I feel like I found my tribe today. And I'm an artist, but I don't specialise in any one thing, because I've tried absolutely everything and at short bursts, so I don't master at any particular one thing, but I know a lot about a lot of different things. So it's really, really interesting. Thanks for bringing that up and for that.
I think sometimes
it does explain a lot.
Even you can be really good at something but not want to pursue it. Because I remember a lecturer sort of getting really upset with my son because he was like a superb printmaker, but he was like done with printmaking. I don't want to do that anymore.
Is there any other comments, questions?
Yeah, you've kind of spoken a little bit about it just then, And I also resonate with the kind of like fleeting kind of interest and then not interested. But one thing I guess kind of as a later diagnosed autistic person, it's kind of like rediscovering, as you said, the old special interests. And I also look back and kind of think, because my special interest as like a 9-year-old were very, very niche, in terms of like Fleetwood Mac being an obsession. But as a 9-year-old, that's quite strange, and bird watching as well. And it's kind of things like that I look back on and think, why on earth did my parents not pick it up? But you know, for years I kind of tried to ignore them and thought, oh, you know, got a mask, subconsciously got a mask and not be interested in those things. And it's kind of since getting diagnosed that I've picked up those interests again and have really enjoyed that. And I just wondered, you kind of said about kind of rediscovering it. I wondered if any of the panelists had kind of maybe had special interests that you'd quashed in the past but have re-embraced and got enjoyed.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I know, well, my mum's very much like traditional, like blah blah blah. So like having a special interest of brats and like wanting to keep a hold of your brat collection, age 16, does not fly with a woman in her 40s who's like, nope, you're too old for toys now. And it's quite funny because now I rent my own playstyle, and if you go into my bedroom, there is a beautiful little brats display, a beautiful little pet shop collection, and all of my drag posters on the wall. It's just a bit of like an act of rebellion. No, it's just sort of re-picking stuff up, and I think like it's interesting to re-find things once you know you're autistic, because you're kind of like, this is why like I've picked so much information up about this. Like I remember being in like secondary school, and I don't know why I did this, but there's YouTubers called Dan and Phil.
Yeah.
I started a Wikipedia page.
I love that for you.
I don't know, it was a weird hyperfixation for a good couple of months. Like I started a wiki for them, and I was like doing X amount of pages. I still get email notifications about it. I'm like, I did not touch this in years. And it's just like re-picking stuff up. And I think for me, when I look back on like, I got into like YouTubers, I was like, so I liked Dan and Phil because I was trans.
Yeah.
And because I am quite flamboyantly homosexual. So it's kind of nice in a way. I feel like it does help with like learning more about yourself. I think it's just nice to like, it gives you that freedom, and it feels like it feels nicer once you like allow yourself to embrace these things.
And like as a kid, my special interest was reading, and once I got to like high school age, it was almost like you were shamed for it because it's like not the cool thing to do, and like, oh, you know, you should be hanging out with people, not got your nose in a book. So I stopped it for so long because I felt like, I don't know, people would like make fun of you for it. And then since I got diagnosed, I've like picked it back up, and it's, I don't know, it's so fulfilling to like have something that you loved as a kid and then being able to go back to it and being like, oh, like this is that feeling I was chasing that I wasn't letting myself have.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I had that with poetry actually, because people would be a bit snooty about it, or a bit like, you know, why?
Yeah.
So,
I was going to say that. Does your passion for your creative pursuit, or whether it's performance, poetry, or comedy, does that it gives you something to sort of channel your drive for and to do, but does it make you feel still like you don't quite fit in with all the other comedians or all the other poets, or does it give you like the individual edge that actually to be really good at what you do, you kind of need that, don't you?
Yeah,
Otherwise you are just like all the other poets, or you are.
Yeah, but it's nice being different, because I'm definitely a weird performer, but I enjoy being the weird performer. Like I've been on lineups where it's like drag queen, glamorous drag queen, me.
Well, so the performance gives you sort of like a safe space to be about as weird as you can want to be, right?
And usually the lineups that I get booked for, they know they're in for something a bit odd. Like I did a gig in London. It was like an alt drag show. Someone gave birth on stage.
Like actually?
Not literally.
Oh.
I know. I was
thinking
I would be very impressed. I could like love you. Go to the hospital. there was someone eating raw cabbage on stage, doing ASMR sounds. It was great. It's just having those spaces is quite nice, and it's also like those shows where like someone who's like, oh, they think they're in for a traditional drag show. No. And I feel like it's those moments where like it helps educate people, weirdly enough. Like especially when I was at the Vagina Museum, it was nice that it was a room for the people that knew what it was about, that were there to support the cause. And like them as a charity, I think it's so vital. And I know their work helps educate others, helps educate like men who maybe don't know any better, people who just like don't know their own anatomy. And like as someone who is non-binary trans, it's nice to have that, because it's kind of like, now I feel more comfortable in my body, knowing more about it, and like knowing that like a lot of the history is so much more like diverse than like you would ever really think.
But if you declare yourself as an artist, a poet, or a performer, or a comedian, do you find that you still have to manage people's expectations about what that actually means?
And
It's a bit
your
like
own.
autism itself.
Yeah. Because if you've been masking fears, I have a lot of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I really have that. And sometimes I feel really at home and sort of connected within the poetry community. But then other times I get the imposter syndrome, and I think I'm, comparing myself. I'm not as good. My writing isn't like theirs. My writing doesn't really fit into a particular niche, because
Same.
I have a particular way.
It's like if people say, what medium do you use? If I say to them, I'm using watercolours this week, but it doesn't mean to say that my watercolour's going to look like what you're imagining.
I think
that's nothing to do with it.
I think my writing is not like anyone else's, which then makes it a bit
Which is good,
harder.
because
Which
as
is
an
good,
artist,
it
that's
is a
what
good
you want, is that unique thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you kind of, I find at the same time I want to be fitting in
I think
in
that's
the art world and the art
Yeah.
communities, but don't always feel like that. So, and the other thing is that on paper I would say, we've got social anxiety, but I hadn't really, so I wouldn't be speaking out now if I had social anxiety. But I do have a fear, and you say don't be scared. I am terrified if I'm expected to exhibit my work, and I have to sit with that. Well, I am scared, and I have to accept that I'm doing this because it might inspire other artists, or might even make them feel better about their art. Because if she can do that, then I can do this. But I avoid it.
They've asked a question here. That doesn't mean you don't suffer from social anxiety.
Yeah.
I think
You can have good days and bad days.
it manifests in different ways, and this is quite a safe space as well.
Yeah. And I'll sit up all tonight thinking, did I really say that?
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I think it's one of those things where like it is terrifying when you start something out. Like I think it's taken me years to feel comfortable. Well, I've always enjoyed doing drag, but there's always been like, oh, that didn't go well. Oh, this, that, this, the other. And I think it's like you kind of have to make yourself uncomfortable.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Yeah, to get to some like I still have days where I don't feel like 100% comfortable. Like there'll still always be like I always had something weird, or I like
I
this.
think I've just got comfortably used to feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's taken me
definitely-
60 years, but at least
It's definitely something that like it can definitely be worked on, and like you're always working on it, but it's possible. At least I don't feel like something it is.
Yeah, because I often like after a gig, I'll come home and I'll like look back at my material and be like, oh my god,
Oh, yeah.
how much did I say that?
I do not
That
want to process work.
Too many people know too much about me now. But then you think, well, if I hadn't said that, and it like usually it does get a lot of laughs, then I'm like, well, if I hadn't said that, maybe it wouldn't have gone as well. So it does end up working in my favour, I think, in the end.
I think that exposure in creative work is quite good, because if there's no risk, then it's usually not very good.
It gets very boring very quickly. Yeah.
It's like exposure therapy in
Yeah.
a way.
Okay, thank you very, very much. I really appreciated it, really enjoyed the conversation and the positivity that's come out of it, and the acceptance of who you are and what you do has been brilliant. Thank you.